Julia, that was a formal Japanese introduction. This is a Japanese Japanese art festival. I'm here to teach you two separate things. The first is costume, about how to sew. Just want to raise your hands. How many people have actually done sewing before, whether by hand or machine? Looks at everyone. For those who have not used a machine before, have you ever used just making pins to pin your stuff together? Yeah. All of you do, yeah? Yes. So does anyone who not know and want to know how it's done? How to sew on the sewing machine? Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I did not glue. Sewing machines only work in straight lines. Of course, there are many things you can do with a sewing machine, but that goes with experience. Now, when you want to sew on a sewing machine, the very basic thing is about pinning. So get ready yourself a box of just making pins like all of you usually do. And then what happens is, for example, you want to do two pieces of cloth together. Yeah. My suggestion is always to put the softer cloth on the top, because then you have better control. If you put the softer piece below, what's going to happen usually is that when you go to the machine, it gets stuck to the bottom part. The bottom parts usually are really rough, and when you try and go through them, when you finish your line, come up, you're like, oh, it's all wrinkles at the back. So you wouldn't want that. Put the softer piece on the top. So I'm going to show you more of this one. This is the harder piece, and this is the softer piece. Yeah? So basics of pinning. Pin them together. Make sure, well, for costume making, usually I suggest at least half an inch away from the edge. I work in inches, but that's probably about 1.5 centimeters away from the edge. It gives you a bit of space to trim off certain things and for it to fray, because we don't have overlockers, yeah? No one have overlockers to make your lines really smooth. All of the insides are all fraying and going crazy, so there is another way across to stop the fraying. I can teach you something. It's called pinking shears, but I think most of you will probably already know what pinking shears are, but I'll come to that later. Pinning basically is just like that. So make sure, just imagine the line there, and pin straight. So what you do is you pin horizontally across, this way. You wonder, if I put pins there, what's going to happen to the machine? Don't worry about that, I'll come to that in a bit. So lay it flat and pin. This is just basics for people who have never used a machine, so if you've done it, just bear with us for a bit. So, for example, you pin for a short line, you probably pin about 4 pins. Try not to skip your pins, because if you do that, when you sew it, you're going to have a lot of problems. You'll be like, oh, it's going crazy, or the machine's not doing very well. Usually you pin, you pin outwards from the edge. So sorry, my fault. For example, just like that, for example. I'm a bit flustered. Like that, with the pin sharp side facing on the outside, so that when you put this on the machine, I'll just show you. This is the sewing machine. Yeah. You don't need an industrial machine unless you're doing things like PVC or leather or, you don't need that. This is the best. I have used this to sew a whole gown before. So people tell me that, oh, this one wouldn't work. No, it's £50 and it helps you sew a gown. So it actually works, it's just the control. What you do is this. You see the lever here? If you don't know how to tread, there's sewing machines instructions, or you can come and look at this later after the class and I can teach you how. You just put this through this way. Can you see this right? Yeah. And then you lay it down this way. Yeah. When you step the pedal, this thing will start to move backwards like that. Let me just lift it. You start to go this way. But what it does is, as the stitches go along, stitches aren't very big, it will miss the pin as it goes along. Does it make sense? What it does is sews down this way. It just goes like that, miss the pin, and continue. So you don't have to worry about your pins getting bent or your pins flying off. It will just stitch nicely for you. But if you pin your pin slanted, like in an angle, for example, like that, if you pin it this way, it will bend your pin. You have a very nasty on your machine and you're like, what's going on? But it'll be okay. Yeah, just remove the pin and you're fine. In certain cases, sewing machine, the needle does break off, but that happens all the time. Just be careful when you stitch, not to put your finger right here, because people stitch their fingers. So that's
don't take your finger off the machine if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
That will happen.
Domestic machines are generally quite slow, so you should be fine. But industrial machines, they get really, really fast and really harsh. So
they also keep your momentum up as well.
Yeah.
So when you think it's finished, you go.
Yeah. Try not to keep doing that. Now, the next thing I'll introduce to you is certain fabrics that you'll come across when you're making a costume. It's important to know fabrics and also to know what you are making. So before I get to that, let me just show you stuff. What you need when you start your cosplay, I see many people just going online and go like, I look at this particular pose of this character and I go, I want to do that! Okay, that's fine. But when you do a costume, you need a 360-degree round, all round, front, two sides, and back, as much as you can. Shoe details, blah blah blah, because then it helps you to gauge how you're going to be piecing your costume together. Many cosplayers just go, I love that thing, I'm going to start now. And they make this shirt, and then they go, oops, I don't know how to wear it. There's no zip openings, there's nothing. I squeeze my way through now, it's not going to happen. So what I tend to do usually, this is just something I printed because the projects are coming up for me. Of course, I'm not asking you to do sort of advanced stuff like that, but you can slowly progress and you will do this one day, yeah. For example, this is the front view. Everyone looks at it, oh, gorgeous, I want to do this. Not sufficient. You have this for the head details and the makeup, yeah. And then this is what you need. Just this one part. I'm going to teach you how to do this, but I'm just going to explain to you how it works. When you look at this, you wonder how long. Some people have costumes really awkward. It's because you didn't measure their bodies to this body. You may have a plumper body, a thinner body, shorter body, or longer body. Doesn't matter. What you need to do, I made it huge. Yeah, is to do. Let me just take a pencil. Is to measure your own height and do proportions to it. So you measure your height. For example, my height is 160 centimeters. Yep. And I measure in proportion. Probably this is like 1/10. Probably this is like 1/8. And I'll just gauge accordingly where my waist and my bust is going to be. Yep. Then what I do is I measure myself and I write those measurements here according to ratio. And then I'll gauge my own human body to the game body, because they are sometimes too fictional, it's impossible. So to get as close to this as possible, I measure and I draw lines and grids all throughout the costume, making sure that each grid is always a measurement. So all the things that I've got placed here, including the designs and the way I draw them, I'll double check it all the way with the measurements I have here, according to my body. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if that's the case when your body comes out, all the details that you have will all be very, very proportionate. You wouldn't have to worry about your bow being bigger or your body being smaller or something like that. So that's not really a problem there. That's just a general explanation, but it takes a long, long time. This takes longer than the time I used to make my costume to measure everything. Okay.